You may not feel it, but something is missing. Not loudly, not dramatically. It's missing the way a locked room is missing air. Not obvious until breathing becomes work. You walk through your days informed, entertained, occupied, but not fundamentally rearranged. And that is what books do. That is what you are quietly missing. Somewhere in Man's Searching for Meaning, Viktor Frankl, the author of that book, explains why people who lost everything still chose to live. In 1984, the author of 1984, George Orwell, shows you how truth disappears. It's edited, softened, renamed until you thank power for lying to you. In Sapiens, the author Yuval Noah dismantles money, nations, religion, and a law and leaves you with a frightening realization. Most of reality runs on stories we collectively agree to believe. In The Body Keeps the Score, the author Basil Vandar reveals that your past may be running your present through muscle memory and chemistry, not choice. In Meditations, Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man of his time, writes not about the domination but restraint, because even emperors feared becoming monsters. In Crime Punishment, Dostoevsky proves that guilt does not wait for courts, it sentences you immediately and relentlessly. These are not books, these are weapons, mirrors, escape routes, and instruction manuals. And while you scroll past opinions, somewhere people are walking around with these insights stitched into their nervous system. The gap between you and them is not intelligence, it is exposure, and once you see that, you cannot unsee it. Now let's soften the lightning before you accuse me of being dramatic. I'm not saying readers glow in the dark or receive divine Wi Fi. They still procrastinate, forget birthdays, and Google things they absolutely should know. But books have a strange habit of showing up there where life feels thin. They sit quietly while doing something indecently unfair. They give you access to decades of thinking without charging you years. And yes, some books are boring, criminally so. Should some should be arrested for crimes against attention, but so are meetings that could have been emails. Relatives who won't stop forwarding forwards, and gym machines that feel personally hostile. We endure those. What's odd is we confidently reject books while secretly admiring people who speak with clarity, argue without shouting, and don't emotionally collapse every time the world does something mildly inconvenient. The real question isn't why books are hard. The real question is why we pretend they are optional. Let me tell you about people who were not given options. In several prison systems across the world, most notably in Norway, inmates were given broad access to books, not moral pamphlets, not self help slogans, real books, literature, philosophy, psychology, history. The results were unsettling. Prisoners who read regularly showed lower aggression, improved emotional regulation, and significantly reduced rate of offending. This isn't some romanticism, it's data. Malcolm X credited prison libraries with giving him his first real education, teaching him how power works and how language shapes thought. Nelson Mandela reads Shakespeare and poetry in prison to preserve his inner life while his outer one was controlled. Books did not distract these men from reality, they trained them to survive it intact. When everything was stripped away, freedom, status, choice, books remained tools of inner escape reconstruction. If books can do that in cages, imagine what they can do in comfort. Guys, basically, I have written a very long essay to convince you and to make a case that you should read. So, let's go back to the essay. Since has Science has since caught up with prisoners, monks, writers always knew. In 2013, researchers at Emory University published findings showing that reading narrative fictions increases connectivity in brain default mode network, the region associated with self reflection, empathy, and identity. What was striking was that these changes persisted for days after participants finished reading. In other words, book keep working on you even when you are not reading them. Additional self studies published in journals such as Brain Connectivity, Social Cognitive, and Effective Neuroscience have shown that reading literary fictions improves theory of mind, the ability to understand other people's emotions and perspectives. This is not entertainment, it is neurological training. Reading is one of the few activities that simultaneously activates language, memory, imagination, and emotional processing. You are not consuming words, you are rehearsing reality. So let me ask you gently in a tone that sounds suspiciously like common sense wearing lipstick. If your brain is capable of being rewired, why are you committed to running outdated mental software? If other people's hard won wisdom is available without you having to suffer the same mistakes, why insist on learning everything through bruises? If trauma, power, love, money, and meaning have already been mapped by people who bother to write it down, why decline the map and wander proudly lost? And here's the part no one tells you clearly enough. The wealth reading gives you does not stay inside. It leaks into how you speak, how you choose, how you build, how you negotiate, how you raise children, how you walk into rooms. Internal books quietly create external outcomes. Now let's confront the real question you have been waiting for, the one you pretend isn't intellectual but absolutely is. Why do you hate books? In 2014, researchers at the University of Virginia conducted a famous study where participants were asked to sit alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes. Many couldn't do it. Some chose to give themselves mild electric shock instead. The conclusion was unsettling. People are deeply uncomfortable being alone with their own minds. Books remove distraction. They demand presence. They return you to yourself. And to this modern factors, constant stimulation, reduced attention spans, performance pressure from school, the idea that reading must be productive or impressive, and suddenly books feels like work. Laziness plays a role, yes, but so does fatigue, so does ego, so does the identity you quietly built around saying, I am not a reader. That sentence is a preference, it's armor, and once it an identity is formed, the brain defends it aggressively. Resistance increases, effort feels heavier, enjoyment feels fake. You didn't stop reading books, you became someone who doesn't read books, and identities once formed will protect themselves even against pleasures. But identities are not truths. They are habits with marketing budgets. The moment you detach from the image of yourself as someone who hates books, resistance collapses. Reading stops being a test and becomes an experiment. And experiments are fun because they don't demand loyalty. You are not required to love books. You are only required to stop fighting them. Which brings us to the most misunderstood part, what to read, and when you are starting, forget the pile of important books judging you from shelves. Forget what you think you should read. Picking a book is like picking a movie. You don't start with a 3-hour black and white documentary when you are exhausted. You pick based on the result you want. If you want enjoyment, choose imaginative fictions. If you want to cry properly, if you want a good cry, pick emotional literary novels. If you want adrenal thrillers exist for a reason. Romance is not intellectually inferior. It trains emotional literacy. Reading is not about virtue, it is about alignment. Before committing reading a few pages, if the writing feels dry, stiff, or hostile, put it without guilt. Flow matters. Once you find writing that flows with you, your reading muscle strengthens over time with tolerance expands. Your taste matures. You begin to enjoy complexity. The game improves as you play it. And your brain already wants this. We know this because studies in cognitive psychology have shown that humans are naturally drawn to narratives. Storytelling activates reward pathways in the brain and increases dopamine, which improves focus and memory. Reading is not unnatural, distraction is. The capability to read deeply existed long before phones trained us otherwise. And because reading alters neural pathways, it also alters personality trait over time, empathy, patience, and critical thinking. This is not personality development, it is personality editing. Now, how do you read without turning it into homework? Read like humans, not a student. Sit comfortably, read in small sessions, write in your book. Yes, write. Circle lines that hurt, underline sentences that feel like they were written about you, scribble thoughts in margins. Research on learning and memory consistently shows that active engagement, writing, paraphrasing, annotating improves retention far more than passive reading. Rewrite phrases that strike you, not for aesthetics but for memory. Messy books are lived in because they become maps of who you were when you met certain ideas. And unlike highlights saved on apps, they wait for you patiently. Now that we have covered why you should read, what you should read, and how you should read, the task becomes oddly simple. You don't need discipline, you need permission. You need permission to start imperfectly. You need permission to quit when the books are not going along with you and they feels like a burden. You need permission to enjoy the books. You need permission, and once that happens, books stop being intimidating objects and start becoming conversation you can enter and exit at will. So go ahead, begin. Pick one book not to improve yourself but to meet yourself differently. And when you do, come back and tell me which one you choose. Like the video if this stirred something, share it with someone who insists that they hate books. Subscribe if you want to keep thinking dangerously, and comment below what book will you read next, because the art starts now. So that was my case, guys, from my side. If you want to read, please read, and do not say that you hate books, because books will change you entirely. Whatever genre you wanna pick, books are there for you. And yes, this is the message, guys. Books are there for us. When nobody is, books are going to be there. If you are suffering from a breakup, you are going to have a book that helps you out when you are suffering from a breakup. So books are the best buddies you're going to find, and I really wish that you are going to pick your next best friend soon. That's it from my guys side. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day. See ya.